in Across the Fence, we'll see how scientists are working in cyberspace to create a more intelligent robot. We'll visit a lab at the University of Vermont that's building virtual worlds where robots evolve. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. A computer science professor at the University of Vermont is among the world's leading researchers in the emerging field of evolutionary robotics. Professor Josh Bongard is not building the actual robots. Rather, his focus is on robot evolving systems. To find out more, Across the Fence's Rebecca Gollin takes us to Bongard's laboratory at UVM.
You can really see the left arm lifting.
University of Vermont professor Josh Bongard is no Dr. Frankenstein. For one, his lab contains computers instead of corpses. But Bongard does share with the fictional character an enthusiasm for creating life.
We try and borrow ideas from Mother Nature to build more agile, more capable, and more intelligent robots.
Though Bongard's lab may look like an unassuming place to be creating these new worlds, that is exactly what's happening.
We create a virtual world, and then inside that virtual world, we populate it with a bunch of virtual robots that are running around. So we have a population of robots. And then the computer reaches in and acts like Mother Nature, where the computer will cull or remove from the population those robots that aren't doing a very good job. The computer is in essence breeding smarter and more capable robots for us.
If it sounds kind of complicated, that's because it is. Bongard's research is a combination of science and technology, borrowing ideas from engineering, biology, physics, and neuroscience, just to name a few, to create the computer-generated worlds inhabited by robots.
Evolution is a fantastically complex process. It's been going on for billions of years. And so our challenge is to try and understand what parts of biological evolution should we try and copy in our computer programs.
Over time and subsequent generations, Bongard's virtual robots evolve in form and function to suit their environments. Or not. It's a new field, and evolution can be unpredictable.
We're often surprised by the results of our computational evolution. Sometimes the surprise adds to our blooper reels, where the robots do something that they'd never be able to do in reality, jumping 100 feet in the air or disappearing through the floor.
Besides the intense combination of multiple disciplines, the research also requires complex math and an abundance of patience.
It's not just a matter of playing with robots in a simulation, it's creating this world that runs according to its own rules. And if those rules are correct, we get what we ultimately want, which is a useful, complex robot.
Even the name of the lab is fairly intense. Just ask one of the PhD candidates that works there.
My name is Shane Silas. I'm a PhD student in Josh Bongard's Morphology, Evolution, and Computation and Cognition lab.
Silas's work focuses on making the research accessible to ordinary people and developing ways for anyone interested to interact with the robots themselves.
What I want to be able to do is to be able to have people download an application, maybe look at a YouTube tutorial, and be able to essentially kind of draw out some robot shapes.
Getting more people interested will help get more research done faster.
We're trying to create web-based tools where users or students can go online and interact with these virtual robots or evolve robots on their own. And so the benefit for the user is its educational or its entertainment value. But while a whole number of users are creating a large number of robots, they're generating useful research results for us.
But it'll be interesting to see on the environment pairs if there are different subsets.
Josh Auerbach is another PhD student in Bongard's lab.
An object that small.
And so, for instance, we can evolve a robot that'll move really well on this ground. But if we put this same robot in one of these icy environments, it just thrashes around and doesn't move at all and kind of just looks like a fish out of water almost, or something like that. But if we evolve a robot in this environment, it can be uniquely adapted to it and be very successful.
Auerbach's research looks at the mechanics of evolution and how different environments affect the way the robots evolve.
They can take on any arbitrary shape, and evolution can try all these many different things. Whatever works succeeds, and that's what the end products will be, as opposed to coming in with a preconceived notion that an engineer has that we should have legs and sensors in specific locations and built in a very specific way that's informed by a lot of their biases. And we think that by kind of taking this step back and giving evolution this freedom to tinker with all these different shapes and different ways of combining these shapes and actuating these shapes, that we can create more successful robots in the long term than we will be able to do by relying on our intuition.
The long-term goal of this research is to create successful robots in the virtual world that could translate to the physical world.
If we do succeed at creating virtual robots, how do we transfer that into a physical robot that can do something useful in the real world? And this is known in our field as the reality gap problem. You have to jump over the gap from these virtual worlds to the physical worlds. So part of the research is, can we get our computer programs to design in these virtual robots a robot that works but also has the potential of crossing the reality gap, that the computer would tell us how to go about building a physical version of this virtual robot.
But it does look
And
like
that would make Vanguard very happy.
I was always interested in robots, and you see robots in the movies, they usually play the bad guys, but you don't see robots in our everyday lives. And so when I was quite young, I wondered, where are all the robots? Why don't we have them yet?
There is quite a long way to go before we start seeing robots in our everyday lives. But the research coming out of Josh Vanguard's lab at UVM is leading the way. In Burlington, I'm Rebecca Gollin with Across the Fence.
Thanks, Rebecca. Joining me here in the studio is Professor Josh Vanguard. Thanks for being with us. I think my first introduction to robots was, of course, the Jetsons cartoon series, and looking in the future. And in the future, you had robots do everything for you, your housework, you know, your maid. They had human attributes.
Absolutely.
And so why hasn't that happened yet?
Right. Where are all the robots? We see them in movies and TV and books. Again, that was something that always interested me when I was younger. And as I got older and got interested in this field and learned as much as I could about robots, I learned that the challenges in this field are not so much engineering challenges. We know how to build very complex machines. We've built industrial robots that exist in factories and do exactly the same thing over and over again. We've built the International Space Station. Humans are incredible engineers, so we know how to build the machines. Turns out that a lot of the challenges are scientific or even philosophical. We don't really understand what the nature of intelligence is. We don't really understand how it is that we sit here and hold a conversation or think about a friend when that friend isn't present. There's lots of aspects of intelligence that seem obvious, that we know how to do it. We do it very easily. So we should be able to build a machine that does the same thing. And in the last 40 years or so of the field of robotics, we've learned that even though humans might be able to do something intelligently, and it seems easy, turns out it's not so easy in practice to get a machine to do it.
Well, aren't we talking about really human aspects and sort of molding biological aspects with mechanical aspects?
That's right. So when we talk about intelligence, obviously that's a very broad term. So in my lab, we study everything from locomotion, so just getting an animal-like robot to move from point A to point B, and hoping that those sort of simple behaviors will gradually work their way up to being able to think slightly ahead, to being able to think about abstract concepts, to hold a conversation, to come up with a new idea. That's sort of the idea, is to move from biological life all the way up to intelligent life.
So in those computer simulations that we saw in your lab, would that be something like one of those robots would move through a certain environment and kind of remember what it had to do to move through that, so when it was presented with that environment again, it could say,
I remember how to do that.
Yeah.
Exactly, and those are the sort of the atoms, if you like, or the building blocks of intelligence, remembering what you've done before, or realizing that you're in a new environment and you have to think about how to navigate through this new environment before you actually try it. Might be a slightly dangerous environment. All those things pave the way towards the things we think of as the hallmarks of human intelligence, like mathematics, language, abstraction, and so on.
So it could be that one of these robots, too, that got into that situation might back off and not try to attempt it.
Absolutely. So we see in a lot of our simulations that our robots make mistakes, which is fine. That's obviously an important part of learning and developing intelligence. And we hope and we try and understand when those robots get into those sticky situations, what, if anything, do they learn from those situations, and do they manage to avoid them the next time around?
Now, one of the things that one of the young men in the video piece was talking about was opening up this realm to everybody.
Absolutely. So robotics, the field has been around for a long time, but like most technologies, it starts in research labs at universities or big corporations, and then gradually moves outward until everyone can sort of contribute to the technology. So if you think about cell phones now, which are relatively mature technology, someone can sit down and program a new app for their phone if they want.
Some people can.
Some people can, not everybody. I don't think even I can, but some people can. So robotics is now getting to the stage where what we're trying to do is, as you mentioned, to open up robotics research to everyone. So we're creating websites and web technology where students anywhere in the world, or anyone really, can go online and create their own robot, and that robot then becomes a member of our growing digital game preserve, if you like. We have these virtual worlds filled with lots of robots, some of which have been built by different people and some of which have been designed by the computer. And we then study all of these robots. We act like biologists and try and understand what's common among all these robots and what's unique.
Now, you won a very prestigious award in 2011 from the president. Tell me about that.
That's the PCASE Award. So this is known as the Presidential Early Career Award for Scientists and Engineers. This was an award that was given out to a number of young scientists at a ceremony at the White House last year. And this particular grant funds my group to do both research and education. So on the research side, we use it to try and build robots and understand something about intelligence. And the other part of the grant we're using to develop this web technology to try and educate and include people in the creative process of learning about robots and understanding what intelligence really means.
Now, you brought a show and tell for us here.
I did. So most of what we do in our group is in virtual worlds, but every once in a while we do build something in reality. This is a relatively straightforward robot here. This is actually built out of the Lego Mindstorms construction kit. This is something that we sometimes use in the classroom, so the students can sit down and actually make something that they've created in simulation. And we can use it as a teaching tool for other things. We can learn about biomechanics, meaning how do animals move, and how does movement, again, pave the way towards intelligence.
Now, when you think about evolution, you think about humans and animals and so forth, and that just took hundreds of thousands of years.
That's right.
And you're trying to sort of expedite that, I assume.
That's right. We're hoping we don't have to wait as long the next time around. So part of the interesting thing, I think, in our group is we're not just engineers studying machines, but we're also trying to understand what evolution is. Can we take the building blocks of evolution, build them into UVM's resident supercomputer, which is the Vermont Advanced Computing Core, and simulate evolution and speed it up. So we're looking for particular traits or abilities in our robots rather than biological evolution, which is free to wander and create species at will. We're sort of directing evolution. So in many ways, it's less like evolution and much more like breeding plants and animals, which humans have already been doing for thousands of years. So we understand quite a bit about that process already.
We've got about a minute left. Can you give me some examples of what some of this technology could be used for?
I think if it's ever successful, we'll see it. We'll see robots, maybe not so much in our home, but at construction sites and out of doors. So industrial robots have helped us to build things indoors, and I think robots would really help us with large-scale infrastructure like repairing bridges and roads, and especially in Vermont, clearing snow. Important things like that, which don't require too much intelligence. intelligence, but it would definitely be a starting point.
Well, Josh, thanks so much for joining us today. This is fascinating a topic, and I could go on forever talking about the what-ifs.
Absolutely. Great. Well, thank you.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.
For a video copy of today's program, call toll-free 1-888-ATF-3430. Across the Fence is brought to you as a public service by University of Vermont Extension and WCAX-TV.